Welcome back again. We welcome back again all the members after the delicious breakfast and the first inning of a renowned speaker C. Sunil Bhai Gabawala. Now the second batsman, and that too on a very important topic. Central Council member from our own region. We welcome C. Vishal Bhai Doshi with a round of applause. Before we start our session, let me say, Vishal Bhai today he is here only for our today's JB Nagar session. Long way from the Baroda, he came at early morning. So thank you very much, Vishal Bhai, for taking this efforts for our profession. So second session, it is on a very important topic, very important changes in the CARO and Schedule 3 under the Companies Act. So now to formally introduce our second speaker, I would like to invite our past convener, C. Chintan Bhai Shah. Regarding our national conference on the capital market, we already announced that it is on the 27th and 28th of August. We have shared the flyers on the WhatsApp and the emails, so we request all the members to please participate and take the maximum benefit out of it. Chintan Bhai.
Thank you, Jayesh Bhai, for this opportunity of introducing the learned speaker, C. Vishal Doshi. Welcome all members and the second session. Great to see great crowd. The topic is also very interesting. C. Vishal Doshi is our Central Council member for the term 22-25, and he was the Regional Council member for the term 19-20. Also a past chairman from the Baroda branch of WIRC of ICAI. He's a partner and practice leader for audit and assurance in KC Mehta and Company LLP Chartered Accountants. He is leading the audit and assurance practice of KC Mehta and Company Chartered Accountants for more than 25 years of professional experience. He also possesses diploma in information system audit and insurance and risk management. Vishal Bhai is the vice chairman of Auditing and Assurance Standards Board, Board of Studies, Expert Advisory Committee of ICAI, and member of various standing committees and non-standing committees of ICAI for the year 22-23. Vishal Bhai has also been a member of WIRC, vice chairman of WIRC in 2021. Vishal Bhai has also made presentations on AS, IFRS, accounting standards, on auditing, standards on auditing, ICAI guidance notes, code of ethics, practice management for small and medium enterprises, accounting standards versus ICDS, Companies Act, Schedule 3, CARO, and the list goes on and on. He's also been a visiting faculty for the postgraduate courses at the Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda. To his credit, he has also been awarded a President Rashtrapati Award for the Scout by Shri K.R. Narayanan, and presently he is appointed the expert member of the Board of Studies in Accounting and Financial Management for the term 22-23 in the MS University of Baroda. With these words, let us all विशाल भाई के विशाल के ज्ञान के बड़े सागर से ज्ञान सागर से हम लोग एक एक गागर भर लेते हैं. So please विशाल भाई, वेलकम.
Past convener C. Anil Sharma ji. Coordinator C. Mahavir Jain sir and Bhavesh Shah and Chintan Bhai.
Good morning, friends. Convener Jayesh Bhai, Regional Council Member Pinky Ben, Coordinators Mahavir Bhai, Chintan Bhai, Bhavesh Bhai, the past conveners of JB Nagar Study Circle, seniors and dear friends. I would say it's always a pleasure being here, and I recollect after I came, हम लोग बाहर बैठे थे. English चलेगा ना सबको? Yeah. I would not use Gujlish, but at least English chalega. Don't worry. So I was हम याद कर रहे थे that I would say fortunate and privileged both that the first physical meeting post COVID, I was the speaker in this very venue about, I think so it was March or April 2021 that I was here. So it's always your love and affection which brings me over here even on a Sunday. And when I see Sunday such a large gathering, it reminds me कि अगर वडोदरा में होता तो सब फाफड़ा जलेबी में ही होते सुबह 11 साढ़े 10-11 बजे तक. We would never have had such an audience. कोई रिस्क ही नहीं लेता मैनेजिंग कमेटी वाला संडे को कोई प्रोग्राम करने का. But because it's Mumbai and I understand the difficulties that you all have on a weekday or a week evening, I would say, that you all gather, but in such a large numbers, and that also on a topic of Schedule 3 and CARO. I don't know आप जब बाहर निकलेंगे बारिश होगी नहीं होगी, but I when people will see you तो पता नहीं चलेगा कि ये बारिश का पानी है या पसीना छूट गया सब. Well, friends, I would say that there are a lot of developments that are happening now. With your support, with your good wishes, with your love and affection, I am there representing you in the Central Council, and a lot of developments. I'll not go into detail because the topic itself is very heavy today. But one thing I can say is that as chartered accountants and especially as auditors, we really need to pull up our socks. Let me be very honest. I'll be grounded when I speak. It might seem a bit blunt also, but the way things are moving at the government level, at the council level, what I would say, see, in fact, I remember Chintan Bhai mentioned when he was introducing me that I am vice chairman of AASP. Now, how many of us over here would know the full form of AASP? When I asked 2-3 people, to alag-alag mere ko bhi milte hain full form. So, see, that is the state of affairs. I'll be very, very honest, very candid, very friendly with all of you that is the state of affairs when it comes to the audit practice of ours. And therefore, that is where I'm saying that this Schedule 3 or Schedule 3 and CARO, I would say, is no change. Now, abhi ye to khatam nahi hua tha, we already have now clause 44 of the tax audit, right? People have started, aisa hai, Schedule 3 bhul gaye sab, ab 44 mein aa gaye. As if, Schedule 3 is a thing of past. But that is the way things are moving and that speed. And the difficulty when we talk of Schedule 3, friends, is that Clause 44 में तो कोई comparatives नहीं देना है अपने को. जो पसीना बहाना है 1 ही साल का बहाना है. When it comes to Schedule 3, it will be for 2 years. Right? So for my first request to the study circle, if possible, I know time is short, but please organize a similar, maybe you can have a webinar or a seminar for the clients of our members. It's going to be extremely important because, see, if I look, and this I say everywhere, wherever I'm making a presentation on Schedule 3 and CARO, that it should not happen the client. See, so there will be a two-way difficulty. One is that I have 10 or 15 company clients. Now, if I go and explain the changes or the provisions, the requirements of Schedule 3 and CARO to each 15 of them, you can imagine the time and efforts that I or my office would be undertaking in educating them. Second, that when at an individual level, there is a conversation that is happening or the changes are being highlighted, what would happen is that the client would feel, this is some extra things which are being demanded. It is not so important. Nahi hoga, chalega. Mere ko bhi puchenge कि नहीं करेंगे तो क्या होगा. See, such things would happen with the clients, and we all understand and appreciate what the ground reality is. So when it happens from a platform like your study circle, then definitely the seriousness would creep in, whatever extent, 10%, 20%, at least our members would be saved of that. And third and very important thing, that from this platform, whosoever is the speaker.
रुकना यार, रुको, खाने तो तुम लोग एकदम नाटक रहता है यार, ये बोलता है मैं उठाओ, क्या क्या करो यार, देखो ना तुम लोग.
Yeah, fine. And most important is that, you know, whosoever is the speaker, when from here सभी के clients बैठे हैं और वो बोल दे कि भाई सारे CS की फीस इंक्रीज होगी तो सबका फायदा होगा. I'll tell you my experience in February. We had organized a similar, interactive session for our clients. And at the end, when we went through all the changes and everything, one of the client himself stood up and said, "अरे विशाल भाई, काम तो कितना बढ़ गया ना अभी." मैंने कहा exactly. तो अभी हमारा जो revised proposal आएगा, आप पास कर देना. Question मत करना, इतना क्यों बढ़ाया है, right? So this can be a way which we can help our members, our fraternity. So friends, to start with, first a disclaimer. Now that I am a Central Council member, this is an important disclaimer that whatever I would be saying today, discussing today, they would all be my personal views, not the views of the council or any of the committees or the board of the AASB or anybody. They would all be my personal views. So first, before we start, let's go into some of the history of these changes. एक तो क्या होता है, मेरे को अभी तो it's August, it's quite late, but when I started these presentations in February, everybody was asking, विशाल भाई extension आएगा क्या, ये एक और साल differ होगा क्या? Because see what has happened, CARO 2020, as the number, as the year says, it was notified way back in 2020. Now, typically, what is the difference between a Schedule 3 and a CARO? A CARO is part of the audit report, where as auditors, it is only our responsibility on the matters that we are reporting on. The management has no responsibility with respect to those matters. When it comes to Schedule 3, what happens is Schedule 3, as per our audit report, the preparation and presentation of financial statements is the responsibility of the management, and we have to express our opinion on that. So the primary responsibility of all the disclosures and everything is that of the management. And then we are giving a true and fair view on that. So there is a vast difference when it comes to a Schedule 3 vis-a-vis a CARO. So the government notified in March 2020 the CARO audit report. And there were a lot of these responsibilities we'll see going forward, which were onerous as far as the auditors were concerned. And at that point in time, neither the company for giving the information nor the auditors, because it was to be made applicable immediately from 1st April 2020, whatever was reports were to be signed post 1st April 20. Fortunately, though unfortunately, but for CARO, I would say, fortunately, COVID first wave came, and the government, on the request by the industry and the institute, they postponed CARO 2020 by a year. In the meanwhile, thereafter, the institute, the then council, the 24th council, I was not a part of the council at that time, but they made a lot of representations to the ministry, the MCA, they had a lot of meetings, and where they were able to convince the government, the MCA, but there are so many provisions which you have put in CARO, which actually first the management should report, and as an auditor, we should then give our opinion, or thereafter only we can report. We cannot suo moto go ahead and report on some of the factors which are, or the questions which have been given in the CARO. So there were a lot of meetings. That is what I have told now with my council colleagues who were there. And they came out with a notification on the Schedule 3 in 2021. Again, that was to be made applicable immediately. The second COVID wave came, and at that point in time, CARO, which was due again 21 because they had postponed by 1 year, CARO 2020 and the Schedule 3 changes, both were further postponed, the implementation by another 1 year to March 22. Right. So as on today, the situation is March 22, it is applicable. All the listed companies and many other companies have already applied all these changes. So there is no question of any deferment or a rollback or any such thing. And since a large number of companies have already applied it, there is no question of any extension also from the 30th September deadline. Let me be very, very candid. And you've seen the 31st July, the view that the council has taken that we are not going to apply for any extension. Hopefully the same view would continue for this also. And see, I'll be very frank, सब friends है यहाँ पे. Ministry तो बोलेगी ना कि कारो 2 साल से आया है तो क्या कर रहे थे? आपने गाइडेंस नोट जुलाई 2020 में फर्स्ट निकाल दी है, अभी रिवाइज भी निकाल दी है, तो व्हाट वर योर मेंबर्स डूइंग फॉर 2 years? For schedule 3 also, what were you doing? It's already 1 year down the line that it is already there. So keeping these things in mind, and that so many companies have already implemented it, there would be, I would say, remote chances of any extension. And now to add fuel to fire, you already have clause 44 of the tax audit to comply with. And therefore, my earnest request, friends, is, like I said earlier, that we really, really need to push ourselves this time. Otherwise, compliance, actually having a true and fair view, compliance would be extremely, extremely difficult with so many things that we have to implement parallelly. So coming to the, so what we will do first, we will go through the changes, important changes which are there in Schedule 3. And then we will move to CARO, because there are a lot of points which are repetition. Anybody who has already applied these changes over here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, fine, good. So I would expect they would not ask any questions. that would be disastrous for those who have not applied. Yeah. So so friends, so like I said, we'll go through Schedule 3. So Schedule 3, there are 3 divisions to it. Why I'm talking about some very basic things is, you know, when we open Schedule 3, it's important that we should know that usme 3 division hai, and we apply the right division to the right set of clients that we have. Otherwise, there might be some under disclosure happening or an over disclosure also happening, which, considering the time frame that we have, we cannot afford, right? So typically, the 3 divisions, I'll just give a snapshot. Division 1 of Schedule 3 is what applies to the AS companies, companies which are under accounting standards, right? The normal non-Ind AS companies, I would say, all the private limited and the small companies and all, they would come under Division 1 to Schedule 3. Division 2 to Schedule 3 is the Ind AS companies, those who are having net worth in excess of 250 crores, and the listed companies and all those. So anybody under Ind AS over here, clients, किसी के वो जो 4-5 ने apply किए वही होंगे, बाकी तो होंगे नहीं, I don't think so. And the third division, or the Division 3 of Schedule 3, friends, is for the NBFCs which are under Ind AS. So NBFCs which are not under Ind AS, they have to apply Division 1. NBFCs which are under Ind AS, they have to apply Division 3. So this is what is the broad background. So whenever you pick up the Schedule 3, or I would say even the guidance note. See, guidance note on Schedule 3, there are 3 separate guidance notes for each of the divisions. So my first request is, although today is a Sunday, आपके I know सारे office के WhatsApp groups तो होंगे ही, guidance note download करके डाल दीजिएगा, at least. So your office staff, when they come to office tomorrow, they know what is in store for them, right? So 3 guidance notes on the Schedule 3, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, guidance note on CARO 2020. The revised guidance note was updated just a couple of months back. So please use that, not the July 2021, because जब July 2020 में guidance note issue किया था, तब Schedule 3 amendments were not in force. So after the Schedule 3 amendments have come, there is a revision in the CARO guidance note that has happened. So that is also available now. That has also been announced, released. So that is there for you to refer to. So this is what is the 3 divisions that are there with respect to the Schedule 3. So we've gone through this background that the MCA March 21, they announced the notification. Yeah. So these are additional disclosures. So whatever we were giving till now, they continue. There's hardly anything that has been dropped from that. All the amended ones are in addition to whatever we are reporting presently. Right? That is one important thing we need to take care. Second thing, as per the general instructions to schedule 3, comparatives for all the numbers, for all the amounts have to be given. Therefore, whatever we would be disclosing for March 22, we will have to make the suitable disclosures for March 21 also. And that is where I said that this is going to be typically a double audit this year. And then therefore we have to ensure that there is a sufficient, the resources are there, or the communication with the client is very clear about what all information we would need. Otherwise, the pressures that we have at the last minute, I have seen, all of us have experienced that, you know, and with these changes, it will be extremely difficult to cope up with the reporting requirement under the Schedule 3 as well as the CARO. So we straight away jump into whatever are the changes. Under Division 1, now there is a mandatory rounding off, which is required. So the full figure balance sheets or the financials that we used to give, कोई को तो टैली में से ही प्रिंट करके साइन ऑफ कर देता था, वो सब बंद हो जाएगा अभी. If I look from that perspective, I'm happy. At least tally वाला अभी print नहीं होगा, right? Because there is a mandatory rounding off. That is. अच्छा. But then that is not the right process. That is that we are following. But so there is now a mandatory rounding off that is there. So rounding off. So if you ask me, काम तो अगर आप शेड्यूल 3 के डिटेल्स भी क्लाइंट नहीं देते हैं, ये टेम्पलेट बनाने में ही आपका कल से ही काम स्टार्ट हो जाएगा. If you don't want to start from today. So what would happen is, you know, I also visualize, I have experienced also in many cases कि राउंडिंग ऑफ कौन सा करना उस पर भी डिस्कशन होता है. See, आज कोई छोटी कंपनी है, 25 लाख का टर्नओवर है, अभी उसको लैक्स में राउंड ऑफ करेंगे 25.50, तो वो क्लाइंट दौड़ के आएगा कि विशाल भाई थोड़ा तो बड़ा फिगर दिखाओ इसमें. अभी तक फुल फिगर दिखाते थे, अचानक 25 पे आ जाएगा तो लगेगा क्या कर रहा है ये. You know, so that itself can be client to client. That itself can be a point of discussion कि भाई किस कौन से उसमें round off करना है. So you have the details that if it is less than 100 crores, then you round off to the hundreds, thousands, lakhs, or millions, or decimal thereof. And if it is more than 100 crores, then you round off to the lakhs, millions, or crores. So, and for this, now they have changed that what you have to consider is the total income for the threshold, not just the turnover. So other income जो है उसको भी आपको include करना है when you are looking at these thresholds for the purpose of rounding off. Not too complex, I believe, but yes. And another thing, as far as the ITR is concerned, there is no rounding off. एक सेट मुश्किल से बनता है. So I would suggest, see what can be the possible options. You have 2 Excel files, एक full figure वाली हो, एक rounded off वाली हो, right? In the same file, अभी उसमें भी there are pros and cons. कि last minute pressure में एक जगह change हुआ, दूसरी जगह नहीं हुआ, तो कौन देखने जाएगा, right? Or in the same file, you have 2 sheets parallelly running, one rounded off, one of the full figure. So that is what I said कि वो brainstorming तो आज से ही चालू करना पड़ेगा कि भाई कौन सा technology भी use करना है. Or in Excel, there you can link it to a particular cell. There is a formula also. I am not here to teach Excel, but where in that cell you put 1, then full figures आएगा. You put 100, तो hundreds में round off हो जाएंगे. You put lakh, then lakhs में round off हो जाएंगे. But उसमें भी वो calculator से total करना पड़ता है because that rounding off errors would always be there in each of the total. Casting, correct. But you will have to bring in some sanity to the way you work, because like I said, friends, we are already, we have just 40 days left now. And you can imagine what we are discussing. So please bring about a proper system in your office. I'm being very, very honest. If see, बहुत बार offices में क्या होता है that the team leaders that we have who are looking after different audits or assignments, they do as per their whims and fancies. So it's time that we put our foot down and bring about a proper system कि भाई ऐसे ही बनेगा, and this is how things have to be done, right? So this is as far as rounding off. लगता है छोटा point, but उसके implications बहुत हो सकते हैं. So that is the first change that is there for the Division 1, and Division 2, the rounding off was already there. Now coming to the face of the balance sheet, division 1. What are the changes? 2 changes. One is property, plant and equipment and intangible assets. These words have been added in the heading. So all of us will have to add that. And second, जो सब point है उसमें tangible assets था, उसकी जगह पे property, plant and equipment is the word that has been substituted. So this is the change that is there on the face of the balance sheet. Though not there in schedule 3, but I would like to draw your kind attention. Please do not use fixed assets anywhere. That is history. That word is history now. Everywhere, at least आप जब नया ये template तो बनाना ही पड़ेगा. Please substitute fixed assets with proper standing instructions. Right? Policies है, schedule का heading है, face of balance sheet है, जहाँ पे भी है, fixed assets is no longer in use. कोई भी division हो, division 1, 2 or 3. So that is one change which I would request everybody to make. Second is AS6 is dead. AS6 पढ़े थे ना, depreciation accounting. अभी वो AS6 है ही नहीं standard. Depreciation is now part of AS10 itself. So please, I have seen balance sheets आज तक which give reference of AS6. तो वो भी एक बार find replace करके either you replace with AS10 or you reframe it that you don't need to give reference of any accounting standard. So these two not part of schedule 3, but I thought बात कर रहे तो technically let us be correct on property, plant, equipment and the depreciation, AS6. On division 2, these liabilities. I know majority division 1 वाले हैं. I'll just take 5 minutes to highlight because you never know ये standard कब अपने को भी लग जाएगा. So, how many of you remember finance lease? मैंने तो पढ़ा भी नहीं था, छोड़ दिया था choice में. हाँ हाँ वही, but किसने पढ़ा था और आज भी याद है finance lease क्या है, काफी complex formula and all. So division 1 non-Ind AS, division 2 Ind AS. So companies which follow Ind AS accounting standards, उनको division 2 applicable होगा. And companies which are following the normal accounting standards, not the Ind AS, the normal, मतलब ऐसा नहीं वो abnormal है, but I'm saying the normal routine वाले, the accounting standards, उसको division 1 apply होगा. About 250 crores net worth. And listed entities and all those things तो है. हाँ हाँ. Subsidies, associates, joint ventures of any company which is following Ind AS, उनकी subsidiaries, associates, JVs को भी Ind AS apply होता है. One. Division 1 would be applicable. Yeah. No, even if unlisted, what she's saying is, even if it is unlisted, but a foreign company has a net worth in excess of 250 crores, then whether division 1 would apply or division 2 would apply. So it would be division 1. Yeah. So finance lease. Yes. It can be in AS, but for the purpose of consolidation, we'll need Ind AS. So I've seen most of the companies in LLPs also, they apply Ind AS only. So lease liabilities, I'll tell you now what, just giving a thought, कि ये क्यों change जरूरी था. So now what the Ind AS says, that let us say the company has an office which they have taken on lease, rent pay. So we used to consider it as an operating lease. जो lease rent pay करते थे, उसको we used to charge off to the P&L every year. बराबर बहुत simple था. TDS, CDS जो भी आता था वो सब करते थे. Now what Ind AS says that when you are taking that on lease, which is for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. So the company has got a right to use that asset, and that right is an asset. So that has to be recognized in the books of account. And because it is a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year lease, there is a liability to pay those lease rental, which has to be on the liability side. So this is what is the sum and substance behind this Ind AS accounting on a operating lease also. So what happens is on the date of inception, जब lease start होता है, जो भी future rentals है, lease rentals है, उसका present value करिए. उसके जो present value है, so you have an amount that is quantified, you recognize the right to use asset, you debit that and you credit the lease liability. The right of use asset is amortized over the period of lease. So वो depreciate amortize होते होते वो zero हो जाएगा asset side में. And जो lease liability है, उसका finance cost करके unwinding would happen every year. Because discount किया है present value पे, तो उसका unwinding आएगा. So the P&L charge would be the amortization of the right to use asset and the finance cost with respect to unwinding of the lease liability. जो lease payment हो रहा है, जैसा हम लोग AS 15 में करते हैं, lease payment will not be paid charged to P&L, it will be knocked off against the lease liability. Right? So this is the funda of lease liabilities under Ind AS. So the question was, because the Ind AS में this standard came just 2 years back, lease वाला. तो उसके पहले जो schedule 3 था, उसमें जो depiction था, जो disclosure requirement था, that was lease obligations with respect to a finance lease. Right? That was a specific requirement. So for those companies which were under Ind AS, there was always a question कि अभी ये जो lease liabilities under Ind AS जो आया है 116, उसको हम लोग कहाँ दिखाएं? So different companies used to follow different practices because there was nothing that was mentioned either in the standard. Standard ऐसे भी कुछ mention नहीं करता है, but in schedule 3. So that is why this amendment has now, जब schedule 3 amend किया division 2, they brought about this amendment where to disclose the lease liability. So it is on the face of the balance sheet, the current portion and the non-current portion, it has to be disclosed on the face of the balance sheet. This is what is with respect to the lease liabilities. So this is a similar thing, that is a depiction कि भाई पहले कहाँ होता था, अभी कहाँ हो रहा है. Statement of changes in equity. Again, this is a division 2, division 3 Ind AS applicability, not to division 1, because there is nothing like a concept of a prior period expenditure under Ind AS. Right? Ind AS हमारे division 1 में normal AS में क्या होता है, कुछ भी पूरा ना मिला उसको prior period डाल दिया face of the P&L में, and we sign off and we complete the audit, right? Because there is a supporting standard for that. When we talk of Ind AS, ऐसा कोई supporting नहीं है. So what it's in, on the contrary, what it says कि जो period का ये income या expense है, आपको वो period में जाके उसको debit या credit करना है. That is what Ind AS says. So if it is of the previous year, comparatives जो है, तो आपको previous year में जाके उसको आपको, so current year के financials में you will have to go into the previous year and make those expense or income whatever it is on the P&L. अगर previous year से भी previous है, तो आपको previous year की जो opening balance sheet, opening reserves है, उसको adjust करके you will have to bring forward the number. So this is what Ind AS says. But when it comes to the equity share capital, so we have the reserves and all that get adjusted when it comes to the income expense. But when it comes to the equity share capital, you can't make an adjustment to the reserves if there is any prior period error. So they have brought about a change with respect to the changes in equity capital due to prior period errors and the restatement with respect to that on the share capital. So this is typically for the Ind AS financials. The next is disclosures of the promoter's shareholding. Division 1, 2, 3, तीनों का apply होगा. So अभी तक 5% वाला देते थे. In excess of 5% we used to give the shareholding. That continues. In addition to that, now what has to be disclosed is with respect to the promoter's shareholding. So who is a promoter? It is defined in the Companies Act itself, section 2, subsection 69. So one who has been named in the prospectus, so typically for a listed companies के जहाँ पे promoter अपने SEBI में या उनके जो disclosures है, जो annual return है, उसमें आपने जिसको promoter define किया है, so they would be promoters by default. Another category is that any person who has control over the affairs of the company, whether as a director or as a shareholder or otherwise, right? So anybody who is controlling the company would by default become the promoter. तो अभी तक क्या होता था? See, many times we have seen that there are some technical directors on the board of the companies. There are some who bring in finance and they are directors, or they are shareholders, but they are say in the company. So all these people, even now, if they are holding less than 5%, even their names would pop up in the disclosures because they are falling into the definition of being a promoter. And the third category is that a person जिसकी advice पे the board of directors is accustomed to act, unless he is there rendering professional services or in a professional capacity. तो इसका क्या हो सकता है? Let us say there is a company where I am not the stat auditor, but I have been asked by the company कि भाई विशाल भाई आप आइए, हमारा जो MIS है on a fortnightly basis, on a monthly basis, you review it, you do the budgeting versus actuals, you find out whatever is the product wise profitability, overall profitability, cost benefit analysis. There are hundreds of things that they would have told me. And then I go every month, I do the whole evaluation, I do the whole MIS, I do the whole analysis, and I go and tell the board of directors कि यहाँ पे आप cost cutting कर सकते हैं, यहाँ पे HR का है, आपका ये करना है, वो करना है. And the board of directors is normally accustomed. It's not 100% मैं जितना बोलूँ उसको सुनना है, but normally they would listen to whatever I say and they are accustomed to act on my behalf. So in such a case, if I am holding any shares in that company, I would become a promoter and मेरा disclosure आएगा. The exception is that if I am there in a professional capacity. So what would be a professional capacity? Something that, let us say I have a retainership agreement. I am billing for the time and efforts that I am giving to them. Then, so what happens is, if you look the logic, that if I'm doing a free service, I'm providing free service, then typically I'm doing, because I'm holding shares in that company, I'm doing it to enhance my share value, and therefore I become the promoter, though I might not be a director. But if I'm there in a professional capacity, मेरा time efforts जो भी आ रहा है उसका hourly billing हो रहा है या जो भी है उसके लिए I am being compensated, and therefore my priority may not be just the enhancing my shareholders value, and therefore those who are there in professional capacities have been excluded from the definition of a promoter, right? So this is what is the disclosure that is required, and current year, previous year, sub mein, I'll not repeat that, but that is required for March 21 as well as March 22. The next change is a reclassification with respect to current maturity of long-term debts. So these are term loans, typically, जो next 12 months में due हो रहे हैं, जिसके installments. So they are current maturities of long-term debt. So till now, classification कहाँ होता था? Current liabilities के अंदर other current liabilities था, उसमें current maturities of long-term debt was being disclosed. Schedule 3 requirement ही था, but now they have modified it that under current liabilities you would have short-term borrowings, and short-term borrowings में you will have to disclose this current maturities of long-term debt. So it's just a reclassification, but I've made a lot of these presentations, and in a few cases what had come up was that there might be intentionally or intentionally bankers है किसी को भी जब ratios दिए हैं तब debt equity में, because this was under other current liabilities and nowhere part of any borrowings, there could be chances कि ratio में इसको borrowing classify नहीं करके, adjustment नहीं लेके ratio करके कहीं पे भी submit किया हो. So in that case, there might be an impact in the ratios that have been disclosed, because like I said, previous year भी आपका reclassify होगा. तो previous year में short term borrowings जो आपने अभी तक दिखाए थे March 21 audited financials में, March 22 के comparative में those amounts will increase by this amount, and therefore those ratios might go for a toss if any such thing has happened. So just take care when you are advising your client on these things. Trade payables aging schedule. अभी तक trade receivables देते थे 6 months cut off. Now trade payables देने हैं, and that also in 4 buckets. less than 1 year, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and more than 3. Current year and previous year. MSME का जो डिस्क्लोजर था वो तो देना ही है. In addition to that, trade payables का भी देना है. Now trade payables again you have to split MSME into disputed and undisputed, and others into disputed and undisputed. कोई है जो बोल सकता है क्लाइंट के यहाँ से फटाफट मिल जाएगा? दो साल का. So friends, 2 साल का 4 bifurcation, 4 column. So what it says, one is कि ये जो आपको columns दिए हैं, they are the overdue amounts. So you will have to, जो भी as at cut off date पे जो outstanding है trade payables में, उसके सबसे पहले तो you will have to find the due date. What the guidance note says कि ये total column जो है, उसका total should match with the trade payables that you are showing in the financials, right? वो तो बैठना है. And friends, the way digitization is happening at the government, I would not be surprised if in couple of years all companies come under XBRL. GST में 10 करोड़ तक तो आ ही गए, टैक्स ऑडिट में 10 करोड़ आ गए, वहां पे तो संगम हो गया. अभी बाकी भी जो डिस्क्लोजर्स है, you never know that they start on the XBRL. All companies and a lot of things would now see, all these things would be in public domain. आप क्लाइंट बैंकर्स कहीं पे लोन फैसिलिटी है, वहां पे फाइनेंशियल्स जाएंगे, टेंडरिंग में जाएंगे, गवर्नमेंट में तो स्कैन होके अपलोड होते ही है with the tax returns, GST. So a lot of these things which you need to take care that you do a proper reporting. Client has to do, but ultimately we are also expressing our opinion and our responsibility is also there. So ये total match होने चाहिए. So these are due amounts. So what the guidance note says that you add 2 more columns to this table. One, not due. Right? समझे 15th March को material कुछ आया है, 30 days credit period है. So as of 31st of March, that amount is not due. And therefore it would not fit in any of these 4 columns. तो आप एक column add कर दीजिए not due और सारे उसमें आप डाल दीजिए. And one more column which the guidance note suggests is with respect to unbilled. So what happens? Tally वाले में कोई problem नहीं है. Those who are into SAP, ERP, where you have a fully integrated system, जब भी material आता है, GRN बनता है. जब GRN बनता है, inventory gets debited, and in SAP, what I'll use the SAP terminology, inventory gets debited and a GRIR account gets credited. क्योंकि डेबिट क्रेडिट तो देना ही पड़ता है, बट इनवॉइस नहीं आया है. इनवॉइस जब अप्रूव होता है तब GRIR gets debited and the vendor account gets credited. So this is the flow in all the ERP systems normally. Now अगर आप लेजर मैपिंग देखेंगे ना, तो GRIR तो वैसे ही वो गुड्स रिसीट है, ऐसे ही SRIR भी होता है, सर्विस रिसीट वाला. So GRIR and SRIR, when you look at the ledger mapping, they are all mapped with the trade payables. तो अगर आपको टोटल ट्रेड पेएबल्स इससे मैच करना है, so you would need a column also of unbilled amounts, typically where the GRIR and the SRIR amounts would be sitting, and then only this whole total would match with your financial total of trade payables in your financial statement. So that is the first thing. Second is, जो again majority of the cases and especially with the SMCs would happen, what if the due date is not specified? अभी वो रेगुलरली परचेस करते हैं, उसको पता है. कोई ऐसा भी होता है पेएबल व एनेबल वाले होते हैं, राइट? तो क्या करेंगे? ड्यू डेट तो स्पेसिफाइड है नहीं. So what the guidance note says is the date when you make the client makes the entry in the books of account, it means that the client has accepted that liability, and therefore that itself would become the due date, payable immediately, because it's not mentioned, not specified. So in that case, from that date, voucher date से आपको aging करके immediate due करके आपको you will have to show in any of the 4 columns that, or maybe not due भी होता है तो not due, whichever column it fits in, you will have to fit into that. So that is the second thing. If the date is renegotiated, revised, ऐसा कुछ भी हो तो क्या करना है? Then you will have to consider that if both the parties have agreed to the renegotiated or the revised date, then that becomes the date from which it becomes overdue, and then you can plot the tables accordingly. Important thing is, what is a dispute? So it's not only कि भाई legal notice दिया है या legal notice आया है, कुछ भी है, then that is a dispute. Even a communication between your client and the vendor or the supplier. So it might be with respect to quantity, it might be with respect to quality. In one of my client's case, I have seen it was also with respect to the delivery schedule. Let us say 5th March को goods deliver करने थे. That person has not delivered, उसने 20 March को किए. So your client is now disputing क्योंकि उसने जो sequence में events करके जो supply करना था, that whole thing has got delayed, and therefore he is disputed that I am not going to pay you such amount because now there is a penalty on my head, which I will pass on to you, or I will share with you. You know, so there are n number of reasons why disputes must be there. But from your side, you will need to document. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आप 25 अगस्त को जाएंगे और बोलेगा ये डिस्प्यूट है, लो मैं विशाल भाई मैं आपसे बात करवा देता हूँ वेंडर से, वो भी बोलता है डिस्प्यूट है. If you ask me, no. For 5 months कुछ डिस्प्यूट उसने कम्युनिकेट नहीं किया, लेटर नहीं लिखा, ईमेल नहीं लिखा, व्हाट्सएप नहीं डाला, कुछ भी नहीं डाला, और अभी ऑडिट में ये रिपोर्टिंग का आपने उसको बोला इसलिए डिस्प्यूट चालू हो गया. So please, friends, see, again I'm telling you, this will be in public domain. Tomorrow these financials go to the bankers, and let us say hypothetically ऐसा कुछ आता है that there is a 20 lakh amount which is outstanding for more than 3 years and which is under undisputed. वो तो जो होगा होगा, हमारा क्या होगा? I am more worried about our fraternity. I'll be very, very honest. And I also would request, please be worried about yourself. Tomorrow the banker will come and ask you, और ITO जैसे बोला, इनकम टैक्स वाले कोई भी आके पूछेंगे, क्लाइंट तो कुछ एक्सप्लेनेशन देंगे, आपको भी आके पूछ सकते हैं कि ये 3 साल से ज्यादा है, ऐसा कौन सा वेंडर है जो 20 लाख रुपया मांगता नहीं है, और आपके क्लाइंट सब कुछ करते हैं, विड्रॉल्स करते हैं, ये करते हैं, डिविडेंड देते हैं, सब कुछ करते हैं, उसको 20 लाख नहीं देते. So what will you document? So please ensure, friends, your documentation is complete in all respect. समझिए 20 लाख disputed भी है, you will need to have a backup कि भाई ये disputed है तो उसका क्या है, what is the reason for dispute, what is the documentation, what is the communication that your client has had with them, with the vendor, with the supplier. Extremely important. So either way, see, anything which is more than 2 years, more than 3 years, आप dispute में डालेंगे या undispute में डालेंगे, document तो करना ही पड़ेगा. Right? So this is with the disclosure is for the trade payables. So outstanding expenses, if you have clubbed under trade payables, then yes, if it is standing separately, it's just a provision. जैसे audit fees होता है. Outstanding expenses में we don't put in the trade payables till so it's just a year-end cutoff that we do all the provisions, and therefore it would be in current liabilities. अच्छा, हाँ, another question. I know अभी आंसर लीक आउट हो गया, बट ऑडिट फीस को प्रोविजन में कौन लोग दिखाते हैं? It is current liabilities. It is current liabilities, not provision. Under AS 29, there is a very, very specific definition of provision, and there is a very, very specific definition of current liabilities. So sorry, मतलब ये सब आपने पूछा तो मेरे दिमाग में just आया, but outstanding expenses provisions related है, right? Then they would not come. But like I said that if the invoices have not been received, so typically the due date would not start. जैसे मैंने GRIR, SRR का example बोला, services have been received, goods have been received, but the invoice has not been received. So it's only upon the receipt of the invoice that the due date would start. And therefore that would not get classified, and that is where the institute said कि आप 2 कॉलम और बढ़ा दीजिए, just to ensure an overall reconciliation or a mapping happens. So you have a not due column and you have an unbilled column. So such outstanding expenses, if you are putting it as a part of trade payables, then it would come in the unbilled column, because bill हुआ नहीं है उसका, तो वो unbilled column में आएगा. So yeah, so again, आपने जैसे बोला रेंट है, टेलीफोन है, वन इज मेकिंग एड हॉक प्रोविजन बेस्ड ऑन द ट्रेंड. कि मेरा समझिए, मैंने अगर बाई मंथली है, मंथली है, जो भी है, 15 मार्च का इनवॉइस आया है, लेट अस से इलेक्ट्रिसिटी है, कुछ भी है, दैट आई हैव पेड बाय 31st of March, right? And then there is a 15th March to 31st March period which I make a ad hoc provision based on the trend. So that would be outstanding expenses which is typically not even a trade payable. Second, again 15 March को invoice आ गया है, I have booked that invoice, I have not yet paid as on 31st of March, right? तो वो trade payables में आपका जाएगा, expense है, जो भी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कंपनी के नाम से, टेलीफोन कंपनी के नाम से, but उसका ड्यू डेट है लेट अस से 7th April, 8th April, 10th April, whatever, after 31st of March, then these amounts, because they are not due, they will sit in the column of not due. जो इसमें नहीं है बट गाइडेंस नोट बोलता है, आप वो एक कॉलम ऐड करके आप उसमें सब डाल दीजिए. So this is only for trade payables, but typically if you ask me from an accounting perspective, where an invoice has been received, then it becomes a part of the trade payable, maybe due or not due, but actually it should be a trade payable. Yes, sir. Yes, yes, yes. That can be. So there can be a contract, a purchase order, sales order है, उस पे हो सकता है, invoice पे हो सकता है, right? See, बहुत छोटे-छोटे होते हैं जिसमें होता भी नहीं. You book a liability and then there is no due date. So that is why you will find all types when you go to a client's place, तब पता चलेगा. अभी तक तो invoice उतना डिटेल में पढ़ते नहीं थे. अभी पढ़ेंगे तो कुछ नया ही आएगा. So that is why these situations have been mentioned. So this is one area of extreme hard work which would be required. मैंने बोला ना, अभी बाहर जाके पता चलेगा बारिश का पानी है या पसीना है. And that is why I said that, you know, it's important that we have for clients. Property, plant, equipment. एक क्वेश्चन, जस्ट फॉलो मी. जो शेड्यूल है हमारा, नोट फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, बिकॉज वी ऑल यूज फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, आई एम यूजिंग फिक्स्ड एसेट्स, but actually it is property, plant, equipment. How we show it, right? So first we have the column of the type of asset, then we have gross block, opening, addition, deletion, adjustment, closing of the gross block, then we have depreciation, opening, during the year, deletion, adjustment, closing, then we have two net block, और नीचे एक previous year. How many of us show like this? In my view, it is technically incorrect. See the general instructions to schedule 3. It says that for all amounts you have to show comparatives, which means plant and machinery का जो line है, उसके नीचे या कहीं पे भी उसके सारे numbers के comparatives आते हैं. Right? Then you have electrical fittings, so you have current year, and then you have a previous year. Vehicles है, furniture, fixture है, जो भी है. So if you pick up published results, listed companies, you will find different ways. एक तो जैसा हम लोग ये करके, so they show 2 lines, current year, previous year, current year, previous year करके होता है. या तो 2 टेबल ही दिखा देते हैं, current year का टेबल पूरा, एक previous year का टेबल. हाँ, बट वो अच्छा है, बट फॉर्मूला चेक कर लीजिए. वो क्या है, हम लोग दूसरी फाइल से उठा के यहाँ पे डालेंगे और लिंक कहीं से कुछ आएगा और फिर प्रिंट होने के टाइम तो एक एक फिगर देखते. We all pass through it, so that is why I am sharing that. So, but this is what it is. Though in one of the, I'll be very friendly friends. In one of the such seminars, it was just a couple of weeks back, where one person said that one of the largest Listed company does not follow it. I'll not name that. But he said, but I said, technically, if you ask me, this is what is the requirement. Otherwise, हम लोग सारे notes में, for each amount, why are we giving comparatives? Why can't we give for a total? So if it has to be followed for all, the same would apply to my PPE also. Right? Why I'm drawing attention के like I said, इस बार अपना पूरा template Excel file ही change होने वाला है because of the additional disclosures. So please improvise on this and show current year, previous year, जो भी आपको format लेना है, but you should show for each amount the comparative. So that is on the presentation. Disclosures, I don't think there are any. You can go through this. I'll share this PPT with you. So I want to, because we have a shortage of time, possibly I want to highlight important areas, where it's going to impact us significantly. Yeah. Perfect. So for intangibles also, they have added a few disclosures that on merger, if the amounts are coming in, you show it in a separate column. What this we use merger, they are using Ind AS language, that business combinations and all those things, the revaluation, the impact. So these are additional disclosures जिसको भी impact होता है, आप पढ़ लीजिएगा, disclose कर लीजिएगा, नहीं समझ में आता मेरे को phone करके पूछ लीजिएगा. Security deposits, again a reclassification. So till now, this is division 1. Security deposits we used to show under long-term loans and advances, which now has to be shown under other non-current assets. Right? ये वो borrowing जितना complicated नहीं है, वो भी नहीं था. It all depends, but this is a reclassification again. And in division 2, earlier it was shown under loans, security deposits, which is now it has to be shown under the other financial assets. Right? So this is just a reclassification in the balance sheet. Trade receivables aging schedule. छह महीना दिखाते थे तो गवर्नमेंट ने बोला वो दिखा रहे तो दिखा दो और 4 कॉलम हम ऐड कर देते हैं. So you have 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and more than 3. Right? Whatever I said under trade payables, copy paste, यहाँ पे सब कुछ apply होगा. Similar thing. यहाँ पे 6 रो है. Because अभी तक हम लोग जो दिखाते थे, what we used to show, secured considered good, secured considered doubtful, unsecured considered good, unsecured considered doubtful, less provision for doubtful. That continues. In addition to that, now we have to show similar things, disputed and undisputed also. Right? So you have disputed considered good, you have undisputed considered good, undisputed significant increase in credit risk. ये सब Ind AS की लैंग्वेज है, आपको धीरे धीरे ट्रेन कर रहे हैं. Then you have credit impaired, undisputed credit impaired. Then similar things you have for the disputed. Now again, some situations which I have come across, and I also think whether there is a possibility of having disputed but not considered good. Possible? कैसे? But it is disputed. So let us say it is under arbitration, your first level of dispute, या जो भी है, that has come in your client's favor. The customer has gone for further appeal against that. As on today, since it is in the client's favor, you would say it is disputed. But since the first decree or the first judgment is in favor of the client, it is considered good. I will be able to recover them. So you will have to go into details of each and every amount, where they are sitting, what are the logic, and what is the documentation for it that you have. Again, over here also, you have, let us say, 20 lakhs, undisputed, sitting in more than 3 years. क्या करेंगे? बैंक भी आके पकड़ेगी आपको. Does it impact the profitability? See, it might not impact the drawing power. CC limit नहीं impact करेगा क्योंकि ऐसे भी 3 साल से ज्यादा है. But whether if you take a hit on the provision, on the profitability and all and the related ratios, whether it would have an impact. So a lot of things, transparency हम लोग बोल रहे हैं, but exposure भी होगा. Therefore, that is where our documentation would become very, very important in these things. And again मैं बोलता हूँ, आपके पास तो इतना टाइम नहीं होगा कि हर एक एलिमेंट को आप देखें. So please train your people that these are the things they need to look into when they are plotting these numbers, when they are verifying these numbers. So this is with respect to the trade receivables aging schedule. So total and whatever I discussed in trade payables, it applies here also. So again here also मेरा वो considered good जो है, secured, unsecured, which I am showing in one note, that total should match with my disputed plus undisputed considered good. Right? Similarly, वो mapping करना पड़ेगा. ऐसा नहीं हो सब कुछ हमने sign off कर दिया और बाद में कहीं से कुछ आया कि ये internal match नहीं हो रहा है, कोई उसमें सॉफ्टवेयर में डाला, and then you have to again go for a re-signature. That should not happen. So when you are preparing the Excel, ensures all these totals, the वो checkpoints and all are inbuilt. कि कहीं पे भी वो आए तो तभी उसका solution मिल जाए. Other changes to the balance sheet, where the company has not used borrowings from banks and financial institutions for the specific purpose as at the balance sheet date, then the details has to be disclosed कि वो कहाँ पे use हुआ है. So it does not specify about cash credit, term loans or any such thing. It talks just about borrowings. Which means as at balance sheet date, let us say, see, as far as term loans is concerned, in most of the cases, payment is made directly to the vendor. So it is used for the purpose for which the borrowing has been done. But in many cases, I have also seen that term loan का पैसा जो है वो account खोल के client के उसमें आता है, and then the client issues checks from that account to the vendors for whatever is the project or capex or whatever it is. Till such point in time, if they have put in a fixed deposit, mutual fund, अभी 2 साल से तो stock market सब कुछ बहुत चला है, तो कहीं उसमें डाल दिया है temporary deployment of funds, that has to be reported even if after 31st of March till the signing of the financials, if it has been put to the use, but 31st March को use में नहीं था, तो उसका disclosure करना पड़ेगा. If required, you can add a sentence that after this it has been put to use, it's fine, but as on 31st March, it is the requirement is there, so that has to be done. And for the cash credit ODs, you will have to have a cash flow statement or a fund flow statement based on which, because it would be all fungible money, not a one-to-one, but you will have to see that ultimately it has been used for business purposes or the purposes for which the sanction terms are there. Right? So this is a requirement under Schedule 3. ये अपने कारो में भी आएगा, जैसे मैंने बोला कारो में काफी कुछ repetition होगा in one way or the other, but first reporting is there under Schedule 3. The next is a deletion that has happened on the demonetization के time पे जो mandatory disclosure दिया था वो हटा दिया है. The last is again a very important from a disclosure and from an auditor's perspective. What it says that if in the opinion of the board, any of the assets other than PP, intangible and non-current investments, do not have a value on realization, which is at least equal to. So what it talks about is the current assets. Broadly बोलूं तो, the current assets, whether they would have a realizable value equal to the carrying amount, at least. Right? So inventories है, cash and bank, fixed deposit, trade receivables, current assets, loans and advances, जो भी है. Other than these three, if you are not including this in the financials, my earnest request, friends, is please include this, because this is what is the board's responsibility. If you see, it is written, if in the opinion of the board, the amounts they would be able to realize or not. तो अपने लिए अच्छा ही है. बोर्ड की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अगर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में शेड्यूल 3 की रिक्वायरमेंट है, हम तो बोल नहीं रहे डालने को, the schedule 3, the government itself is saying, then please include this. And if you have already included, the change is that the words intangible assets have been added to this particular disclosure. Disclosure पहले से ही था, disclosure नया नहीं है, उसमें intangible assets add किया है. और जैसे मैंने बोला, आप लोग नहीं add पूरा disclosure नहीं देते हो, तो please add this from this year's financials. Yeah. It is only a year-end disclosure. So if as at balance sheet date, if it is not outstanding, then you need not disclose. But if you ask me, suggest, see why I would suggest tomorrow, let us say, after 1 year, 2 years, something crops up, because they are saying specifically with respect to banks and financial institutions where public money is involved and there is a default. And after typically Gujarati में बोलते हैं वास्तु गास्तु आवे कहीं थी. Then you should not be caught on the wrong foot. If they don't want to disclose over here, fair enough. Auditor's report is what you have in your hand. You might put it over there. So main auditor's report. So you don't qualify it. You have the EOM, you have OM, you have these paragraphs where you can put it. So you don't qualify your opinion, but you feel that this is something important. See, because it talks about the culture, the mindset of the management, which is very important from a corporate governance. I'm not talking corporate governance from listed, even for all companies, it is becoming very, very important, right? So the next point is valuation by registered valuer. So this is simple इतना disclosure है कि जहाँ पे revaluation किया है, तो जो valuation report है, whether it has been given by a valuer as defined under the valuation rules. मतलब approved या authorized valuer से valuation करवाया है या नहीं है. That is the disclosure which is required. In division 1, it would be with respect to PP. In respect of division 2 and division 3, because they are Ind AS companies, it would be in respect to PP. It can be in respect to investment property, or it can be in respect to intangible assets where a revaluation or a fair valuation is permitted. Title of immovable properties. So whether the immovable property is in the name of the company or not, this is what is the disclosure that is required as far as this disclosure is concerned. So it talks about immovable property. So you have land and or building. बैलेंस शीट में कहीं पे भी आता हो, प्रॉपर्टी प्लांट इक्विपमेंट में आता हो, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी में आता हो, नॉन करंट एसेट्स हेल्ड फॉर सेल में आता हो, या कहीं पे भी आता हो, this disclosure is required. So what is the disclosure? Gross carrying value. So where it is not in the name of the company, so you are having an amount in the sitting in the financials for with respect to a land or a building or both, and it is not in the name of the company, then you'll have to give the gross carrying amount, title deeds किसके नाम पे है, जिसके नाम पे है, whether that person is a director or a promoter or an employee or a relative of a director or a promoter, property held since which date, and कंपनी के नाम पे क्यों नहीं है, अगर वो डिस्प्यूट है तो आपको वो भी लिखना है, इंक्लूडिंग लीज्ड एसेट्स. So even if it is a leased property, immovable property, if the lease agreement has not been executed, in that case also this disclosure is required. Yes, sir. Sorry? Yes, if the rent agreement is not in the name of the company, so it's not a executed, duly executed rent agreement, then also the disclosure would come. Because if you see, the exemption is other than properties where the company is the lessee and the lease agreements are duly executed in favor of the lessee. Yes. Only immovable properties. Only for immovable properties. But since, see, I appreciate लीज रेंट तो जा रहा है 20 रुपया 25 रुपया जो भी जाता है साल का, पगड़ी वाली में तो उतना ही होता है, 100 200 500 रुपया जाता है. बट बिकॉज यू आर सेइंग इट्स अ लीज प्रॉपर्टी, देन वी विल हैव टू गिव दैट डिस्क्लोजर. See, because you are a tenant, and honestly, just 2 days back, I was having a discussion with my friend that this pagadi and all. Honestly, I don't know the history, but what I said, because pagadi mein there is also a premium value at the time of sale, right? So I said, we were just discussing that why such a thing would be there. मतलब, he was saying कि अगर उसको मैं normal rent में convert कर दूँ ये वो. I said, see, these are the things which are coming out from the British era, and at that time, people would not have money to pay the rent. So whosoever would have been the landlord would say, fine, you give me a token 1 rupee. But when you sell off this property, when you relinquish this, at that point in time, I will take the share, 40%, 50%, whatever, or whatever you get at that. So this would be some history, which I am not aware. जो seniors हैं, उनको शायद पता होगा. But as on today, that is definitely a lease property. So see, it is a perpetual lease. It is a perpetual lease. In my view, it would still come under a lease property. So there can be an agreement, if possible. No, there. See, historically, what you say, yes, no agreement. Now that disclosures are required, maybe some agreement can be entered into. Otherwise, as an audit, the company will have to disclose that this is on lease, and it is not. But see, receipt is not an agreement. No, they still issue receipt. They still issue the receipt, but the question is that whether it is a lease agreement, and because then in such cases it's difficult to get an agreement entered into. You have to disclose. This is what I feel, that the disclosure has to be there. Yeah. Sorry?
If I'm a tenant of the
The government wants it.
no, but I do not, I must not be living.
So that is where, if you see, they are not saying that the title should be in your favor. A duly executed lease agreement should be in your favor. Right? So it's not only about ownership. The requirement is specifically for lease property also, where the duly executed lease agreements are not there. Yes, sir. Yes, you can say the reason. So let us say you have purchased from a third party or whatever, then you can say that the advance has been paid, and as per the terms, the agreement would be executed in the near future or whatever. So there is no dispute, but it is an immovable property, and that is why if you see that others category is there. Yeah. So this would be another area which I feel, though properties would be less, right? But still there would be some technical input that would be required. Moving on, loans and advances given by the company. So given to promoter, directors, key management personnel, related parties. So what is the amount of loan or advance in the nature of loan outstanding, and what is the percentage of those to the total loans and advances that is given? So here a couple of things I would just like to share. One is that we will have to ensure that the relationship that is mentioned is on the date of giving the loan or advance. So if somebody is a director in September, तब उसको loan दिया है, अभी 31st March के पहले उसने resign कर दिया है, no longer a director, that does not mean कि 31st March को ये reporting नहीं आएगा, right? So it has to be seen on the date of the loan or advance, the relationship. Second thing is about the advance in the nature of loan. So what the guidance note says, see, many times क्या होता है, related party transactions, specifically, there is a company now which is doing the final selling, distribution, maybe manufacturing also. But at the same time, at the back end, there is another entity, maybe a partnership firm, LLP, जहाँ से सब मटेरियल परचेज होता है या जिसको जॉब वर्क में भेज के वहां से लेके आते हैं, एंड देयर माइट बी अ चेंज इन द कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ द ओनरशिप और समथिंग लाइक दैट, बट देयर इज अ एग्रीमेंट कि ये जो बैक एंड वाला एंटिटी है वो सब जॉब वर्क उसको करके देगा. लेट अस हाइपोथेटिकली पूरे साल का एस्टिमेटेड इज 20 crores that would be coming as a job work from that particular or a purchase or a job work. Now let us say this company, and in the month of April or May itself, they have advanced 15 crores. So what the guidance note says, that advance in the nature of loan, this is what has to be seen. कि बोला है advance against the job work charges or against the purchase of material, but whether it is advance or actually it is a loan. So you have to see from two perspectives. One is the quantum and second is the time. क्वांटम मतलब समझो 20 करोड़ का पूरे साल का एस्टिमेट है, अप्रैल या मई में ही 15 करोड़ दे दिया. सो वेदर यू वुड नॉट से दैट ये तो लोन जैसा ही है, इट इज नॉट अ प्योर बिजनेस एडवांस आर्म्स लेंथ जैसा तो नहीं लग रहा है. सेकेंड इज अगेन गोइंग बाय द सेम एग्जांपल कि मार्च तक 20 करोड़ है, पहले 2 महीने में ही 15 करोड़ दे दिया. सो टाइमिंग, दे कुड हैव स्टैगर्ड इट कि चलो 80% हम लोग एडवांस देते हैं, 20% वी वुड एडजस्ट व्हाटएवर. सो these are the things that you will have to keep in mind, not for everybody, but for such categories, related parties, KMPs, directors and promoters. इसमें अगर किसी को एडवांस दिया है, then that also you will have to see that if you are not disclosing or the client is not disclosing under this table, then you will have to evaluate whether actually it is in the nature of advance or not. Pure advance, business advance है, arm's length जैसा लग रहा है या आपको loan transaction जैसा ही लग रहा है, right? So this is what is the things that we need to take care in this reporting. रिलेटेड पार्टीज में आ जाएगा. नहीं, लास्ट लाइन इज रिलेटेड पार्टीज, KMPs एंड रिलेटेड पार्टीज, 4 कैटेगरीज. CWIP, या five and six.
They have to charge the interest. They are turning into the business. How to charge the interest only? That is outstanding for let's say 5 years, 7 years. Get bank current or something or no interest.
So two things, bankruptcy साइड में रखते हैं, नॉर्मल कोर्स है, 4 साल 5 साल तक नहीं आता तो वो लोन ही हो जाएगा. आई डोंट थिंक 185 186 एडवांस जो है वो उतना लंबा तक कोई भी उसमें कुछ कर सकता है, राइट? सो दैट इज नहीं. See, acceptance of deposits would not come because this we are talking on the asset side. It's not on the liability side. So, but I don't think that that can be a savior. It has to get disclosed over this because इतना लंबा टाइम से नहीं आता है. So that is why where I said the transaction should be at arm's length. अगर वो किसी और को एडवांस देता तो क्या करता, right? And friends, if you go through a lot of these changes that have come, you know, अगर आप Companies Act changes देखेंगे over the last 20 odd years, कोई scam होता है और changes आते हैं. Let me be very candid. You see that is the trend. So just think about the recent scams that have happened in the last 3-4 years. And we all know a lot of them were with respect to loans, advances within the group, related parties and all those stuff. So if you ask me, bankrupt है या bankrupt नहीं भी है, जो भी है, disclosure तो करना ही. They can put an additional note. अगर I'll go a step ahead, वो bankrupt हो गया है, तो write off क्यों नहीं करते? Provision किया है for doubtful advance. So see, ultimately from an accounting point, from an auditor's point also, we will have to do some balancing act on this. Yeah. अभी वो तो आया नहीं, आ जाएगा 1-2 साल में. See, because see what would happen, I appreciate, but when we look at a normal business environment,
This will involve application of funds
No, I agree. So see, one is that when I talk of this client, it is sitting on the asset side. Inventory पड़ा है, right? Inventory 3 साल से आप दिखा रहे हैं कि भाई किसी को दिया हुआ है, right? As an auditor, I would first ask for a confirmation. Second, I would do a physical verification specifically for those inventories. Third party, yes. If not, then I should have a write-off. So management is one side, but then we have to see as a auditor what are our responsibilities with the government has given. Correct. So अगर इसमें cover नहीं होता है, but when I'm seeing a true and fair view, right? अभी मैंने जो आगे discuss किया that in the opinion of the board, the current assets they would be realized at the value they are sitting in the financials. तो वो भी कैसे कर रहे हैं? वो कर रहे हैं तो हमारी भी तो responsibility है. When I talk of non-moving, slow-moving, हम लोग बाकी में provisioning करते हैं on some basis, some rational. So why do we exclude this? If it is more than 3 years old, non-moving है, physical. See, if you see a listed companies के भी अगर आप CARO देखेंगे, where they say कि third party inventories होती है, तो वहाँ पे either there are independent agencies which do the verification, the auditor does, or certificates are received from them that they hold such inventory as at 31st of March. So then we also need to do these processes to ensure the true and fair view. Because see, इसमें क्या होता है, sorry to interrupt sir, but इसमें क्या हो सकता है, if I think loud also a bit going forward, ये inventories है. How would the banks know? Inventory is sitting, creditor payoff हो जाते हैं. So this is a paid stock जिसमें bank is giving limits facilities. So is that also not wrong? कल समझिए वो अकाउंट NPA हुआ, God forbid, but होता है, तो बंदूक तो इधर ही आएगी. बट 3 साल से बेच रहे हैं क्या वहां पे? जो भी पीरियड है, you have to check those reports whether they have been verified. See, one is factory में बेचते हैं. Yeah. CWIP कितने के केसेस में होगा? हाँ? Okay, few cases. So there are two reportings under CWIP. One is historical, the aging. As you can see, again 4 buckets. तो जो 31st March को CWIP balance है, उसको aging करके we have to disclose. So the aging we did not do project wise. It is projects in progress and projects temporarily suspended. ये 2 categories है जिसमें aging आपको पूरा बताना है, and this has to map with the financial statements जो CWIP आप दिखा रहे हैं. So that is on the historical numbers. Second is completion schedule, future का. So where there are time overruns or cost overruns, in case of CWIP, in such cases project wise details has to be given that ये अभी कब complete होगा. So you will have to do a lot of documentation when these things are getting covered. Okay, see, typically CWIP, the larger projects would be sitting in CWIP, not some छोटा मोटा purchase होगा, वो कभी CWIP में होता नहीं है. It's more of a factory related thing or a larger issues. So there would typically be the minutes of the meetings or discussions, projects related जो भी होगा. I am not talking of extra large companies also, but even in जहाँ पे भी अगर 40-50 करोड़ से भी ज्यादा का भी कुछ projects होते हैं, then I've seen that there is a team that gets involved. उनके क्या minutes है, documentation कब होगा, whether they were temporarily suspended, is there a revision in the due date? समझिए कुछ March 22 में complete होना था, अभी उसको revise किया है March 23. So is it an extension or actually a revision? So you will have to examine all these things when you are reporting under CWIP completion schedule. So 2 disclosures, historical and the future one. Similar thing is for the intangible assets under development. So CWIP for intangibles, similar reporting on the historical basis, जो balance sheet में है, उसका aging दिखाना है, and उसके beyond जो future में है, time overrun, cost overrun का, उसका completion schedule देना है. बेनामी property. Yes. तो अपने कोई बेनामी प्रॉपर्टी ढूंढने नहीं जाना है. Don't worry. But what disclosure is required where there are any proceedings which are pending or have been initiated under the Benami Act. Then all these disclosures have to be given. Right? तो ये आप पढ़ लीजिएगा, डिस्क्लोजर दे दीजिएगा. I will not spend much time on that because this is an important thing on this slide now. Borrowing on security of current assets. So typically your cash credits, overdrafts, where the security is current assets. Yeah. So I have seen both sides of the financial statements where some are writing item wise and saying not applicable now, and some, because even in earlier schedule 3, there were a lot of these other disclosures also where companies did not mention. But in a majority of the companies, the published accounts, if you see, I have seen that they are coming out with disclosures that if it is not applicable, they are clearly writing not applicable. So it is nowhere mentioned yes or no, but as a matter of good practice, good reporting, they have ensured that they write it is not there or not applicable. Yeah.
Just to eliminate the whole thing.
Just to eliminate, it's not been overlooked. So what I understand that the Benami property, the initiating officer is the assistant or a deputy commissioner of income tax, right? So on the income tax portal, what I understand, if there is any, अभी जिसका होगा वो बोल पाएंगे, मेरे को तो पता नहीं है, but there would be the notices and all that would get reflected on the income tax portal of the client. So if you are able to see that because it is initiated by the income tax department, then that you can find out from that. So no. So that is what I said, sir, that having or not having is not the question. The question is whether proceedings are pending or have been initiated. Right. So on that basis, see, I'll just draw up another thing, that what happens in case of contingent liability. See, in many cases, I've seen in case of SMCs, contingent liability rupees nil. Now, as an auditor, how do we verify that? कि किसी का कोई भी contingent liability तो इतना बड़ा है, तो सिर्फ बेनामी है, तो कहाँ पे है, क्या है? So you do your audit procedures. Like I'll be very categorical. As an audit procedure, हम लोग क्या करते हैं? Legal professional expenses पूरा check करते हैं कि कोई एडवोकेट को पैसा दिया है, किसी को दिया है, तो उसको पूछते हैं कि ये किसके बेसिस पे, बोलता है पीएफ का कुछ लफड़ा चल रहा है, कहीं पे इसका चल रहा है, तो उसके बेसिस पे भी आज सीक द डॉक्यूमेंट एंड we check from the income tax portal, the GST portal, kahin pe notices hai here, and on that basis we find out and then we take it up back up with a MRL. So over here also similar procedures have to be followed, that benami related kuch hai nahi hai, you go through the income tax portal, koi notice is pending hai ya nahi hai, then you can back up with the MRL and then make the suitable disclosures. सर वो तो अभी कोई भी ऑडिट रिपोर्टिंग में हो सकता है. कंटिंजेंट लायबिलिटी नील लिखते हैं, अभी कल पता चलेगा कि भाई वो तो कोई अपील था, कोई पे नोटिस आया था, तो व्हाट डू वी डू? सो दैट इज वेयर आई सेड दैट वी हैव टू डू ऑल द ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स, एंड अगेन कमिंग बैक टू स्क्वायर वन, if you have proper documentation to justify that you have done all the procedures and it was a negligence on the part of the client, then I don't think you would be put into any difficulty. Right? Yeah. Borrowing on security of current assets. भाई आज वो घड़ियाल भूली गया उसको, पहले मैंने कही दे दो. नहीं दो रहेंगे तो भी मैं बोलूंगा. No, fair enough. No, sure. I said, see, I don't want to come in between lunch and everybody on a Sunday, so that's why I said. नहीं मैं बोल देता हूँ, मेरा तो 5:45 का फ्लाइट है, रिस्क आपका है. Yeah, sorry. So this is another challenging area. Borrowing on security of current assets. If you ask me, trade receivables जहाँ पे security होती है वहाँ पे aging, accounting सब proper होता है. I don't see a great challenge in that. The real challenge comes in the inventory. So what is required is quarterly statements filed. Statement बोलो, return बोलो, जो भी है, filed with the bank, whether that matches with the books of account or not. So two things I would like to clarify, which is there in the guidance note. The returns or statements need not be audited. The books of account need not be audited. What is required is that whether whatever is mentioned in that with respect to inventory, the security, it matches with the books of account or not. So that is the first thing. Second thing is what is required is quarterly. So June, September, December, March. Even if the company has a requirement of monthly, ignore rest of the months. You have to just focus on 4 months or the 4 quarter ends. That is the second thing. Third thing, अभी इसमें इतने सारे presentations किए हैं. This would be almost my, I would say, 25th or so on this. तो बहुत questions आते हैं, especially on this point. What if it is not filed on 31st? See, creativity बहुत होती है. Not filed on 31st of March, but 28 March को file किया है. तो क्या? Whether it would be quarter end. नहीं, question तो ऐसा था, reporting करना है क्या? करना है. I think everybody agrees. No such giving benefit of doubt. Second, स्टेटमेंट फाइल किया है, बाद में रिवाइज किया है, तो क्या करना है? रिवाइज कब किया है? 2 महीने बाद, 3 महीने बाद, आपका कारो बनने के बाद? If there is a material difference between the original statement and the revised statement, we should ask the client to get a confirmation from the bank that they have taken cognizance of the revised statement. Then only we should allow it. Because there might be possibilities that the DP would change. Because for downward कुछ भी हो सकता है. I am not saying that it would always be a downward one on a revision. कुछ भी हो सकता है, but ultimately this is for the bankers. And the bank should acknowledge that they have considered the revised DP. Or the revised statement. Third question, how do we know कि मेरे को जो client दिखा रहे हैं वही बैंक में submit किया या नहीं? No, see, email is one, but we are talking of more of the physical, and we know situations where actually physical would go. हाँ, अगर बैंक एक्नॉलेज नहीं करती है, वो स्टैम्प नहीं होता है, तो ये सब आएगा ड्यूरिंग द कोर्स ऑफ ऑडिट. इफ दे सेंड बाय ईमेल इट इज फाइन, बट समवेयर आई हैव सीन फिजिकल भी जाता है. So let the CFO disclose in the notes. If the CFO says कि मेरे पास 500 करोड़ का स्टॉक है, बैंक की लिमिट के लिए तो मेरे को 100 करोड़ ही दिखाने हैं, तो मैं उतना ही 1-2 लोकेशन ही पिकअप करके जो इजी होता है मैं भेजता हूँ बैंक को. सब मेरा तो मानना ऐसा है कि अगर इतनी बड़ी कंपनी है और अगर ऐसे आंसर आते हैं, I should qualify my IFC. I'm just saying, but let them disclose, na? Let them disclose that whatever. No, so see, one earnest request, friends. Facts जो भी है, get that as a disclosure. Because जब renewal होगी facilities की, these financials will go to the bank. Let the bank break their head on this. अगर revised है, डालिए. बैंक ने acknowledge भी किया होगा. Right, that on the basis of the revised statement, they are matching with the books of account. कहीं पे ऐसा बोला कि लमसम अमाउंट दे देते इन्वेंट्री का 20 करोड़. In one gentleman, our member also said, based on the experience, selling price पे देते. Any cases, inventory records are not maintained. So matches with books of account. Books of account has to be on cost. Therefore, selling price wala nikal jayega. Not accepted. I'll give my views again. When it comes to records, inventory की quantitative कहाँ से verify करें? Because चले value तो आप फिर भी invoice से ढूंढ लेंगे, but closing inventory है, cut off date पे क्या है? Then my question is, on what basis you are certifying the inventory as at the year end? Quantitative information अगर client manual record रखे, I'm not saying कि उसका system में ही होना चाहिए, manual होना चाहिए, reliable होना चाहिए. On otherwise, on what basis you are certifying true and fair value of the inventory as at the year end? If you don't have quantitative records, on what basis are you doing that? So please ensure that इसमें बंदूक अपने पे भी लग सकती है. So मतलब ऐसे questions आए हैं in this, and that is why I said this is an area where, because again जब करेंगे going forward also, client has to be educated that this is how this is to be done. हमारे केस में हुआ था, and I'll be very candid. 31st March था, they had given all the trade receivables. See, trade receivables में भी issue आ सकता है. They had given the trade receivables. When we did the audit, तो उनका वो 15th April या ऐसा कुछ cut off था, तो उसने दे दिया बैंक को. When we did the audit, there were certain cut-off procedures by which the sales had to be reversed. They didn't meet the requirement of revenue recognition. So sales भी reverse हो गया, receivables भी reverse हो गया. So जो audited financials में receivables were less than what was given to the bank. Inventory बढ़ गई at cost. So what to do? So the guidance note says they are not supposed to be as per audited. Right? So as on 31st of March, they match with the books of account. And in our audit document, we kept the whole reconciliation. उसने बैंक के statement में return में क्या submit किया था. As per our audit queries, these were the sales that had been reversed, and therefore this is the trial balance or at the financial statements trade receivables here. So tomorrow, if the bank comes up and questions कि भाई हमको दिया था इतना, balance sheet में इतना कम है, even if they come to us, we can say that this post audit, these were the reversals that had happened. And for the client, what would happen the next year or next quarter onwards, they would ensure all compliances before they give to the banks. So this is an area, again, a gray area, but as an auditor where we will have to take utmost caution and responsibility both. Right? Willful defaulter, ठीक है, कोई होगा ही नहीं, होगा तो disclose कर देने का. Where a company is declared willful defaulter by any bank or FI. Relationship with stock of companies. Again, lot of data to be I would say explored, exploited, whatever. So what is required is that during the year, the company has had transactions with any other company which is a stock of company. Receivables ho, payables ho, loans and advance ho, whether your client has invested into the shares of a company which has been struck off, or your client has a shareholder which is a company which is struck off. ये सारे का आपको इसमें disclosure करना है. So the first requirement, friends, would be CIN. So for all the clients, you will have to tell them कि जितने भी कंपनी के साथ transactions हो रहे हैं उनके CIN निकाल के रखने को. That would be the first step in this. Second step, how do you find out which are the stock of companies? So as per the guidance note, STK 7 is one of the ways, but STK 7 is very, very difficult because STK 7 is a return that each ROC has to file with the MCA for the companies that they have struck off. So you might find that on a monthly basis, there might be 20 returns for each month, or into 12 months karenge, or abhi tak ka historical. So it's practically not possible for us to guide them on this. So what is the other method? That CIN निकाल दिया है तो MCA में जाके चेक करना एक एक CIN डाल के कि ये स्टॉक ऑफ है या नहीं. अगर क्लाइंट करता है तो करने दीजिएगा, आप मत करिएगा. Right? Don't utilize your time into finding out whether the company is struck off or not. Third option, there are service providers for this, where you give the CIN. जैसे हम लोग actuarial valuation करवाते हैं, वैसे इसका भी वो आप CIN सारे दे दीजिए, तो वो उनके पास they have the whole database and all, and they will generate a report and they will give to the company that these are the companies which are struck off. So these are the options which are available, but a lot of work that is required to be done in this case. Right? That is with respect to the stock of companies. Other disclosures with respect to charges satisfaction yet to be registered with ROC. Time period जो है statutory period complete हो गया है, but neither so with respect to satisfaction or with respect to creation of charge, the documents have not been filed with the ROC, then that has to be disclosed. And with respect to number of layers, section 2 subsection 87, it says that you can have 2 layers of companies under the holding company. So if that is violated, then this disclosure is required. Ratios. 11 ratios to be disclosed. So what the, we always had this auditing standards where ratios was supposed to be done. अभी वो schedule 3 में ही आ गए. अभी सबको करना ही पड़ेगा. Right? So there are 4 ratios for the NBFCs and 11 for the non-NBFCs. What it says, so if you on the guidance note, there is schedule 2, I think so, annexure B to the guidance note, which says कि भाई ये ratio आप कैसे कैसे क्या कर सकते हैं. That is just illustrative. Company wise, industry wise, numerator, the elements of numerator or denominator may undergo a change. ऐसा नहीं है कि guidance note में दिया है तो वही पक्का है. That is a illustrative way in which you can compute, but company to company it might change, industry to industry also it might change. But you have to ensure इसमें भी comparatives देने हैं ratio में, because there is a requirement कि year on year अगर plus or minus 25% होता है deviation, तो उसके explanation देने. Right? So you have to ensure that the numerator denominator that you use for both the years are same. March 22 would not be an issue because 22 में आप 21 अभी बनाएंगे पूरा तो numerator denominator same ही रहेगा. But maybe in March 24, when you are doing the ratio analysis, you might find that based on maybe कुछ और आपका interaction हुआ हो, when you have gone through some other companies in the similar segment, you find that there are some changes which are required. Banks या lenders के side से कुछ आता है कि आप ये numerator में include करो या ऐसा कुछ करो. Then in that year, if you are making change, then in the corresponding year, previous year also, you will have to make the change because otherwise the comparative of 25% would lose its importance. But these 11 ratios have to be given. So this is a format that has been prescribed by the guidance note where you give numerator, denominator, current period, previous period, percentage variance, and reason for variance. More than 25% है, plus minus तो ही आपको देना है. Schemes of arrangement, again, this is with respect to merger amalgamation. whether the scheme of merger is in accordance with the accounting standards. That is what is required to be reported in this. Utilization of borrowed funds and share premium. I'll explain this. ये सारा text आप बाद में पढ़ लीजिएगा. So what it mentions is your client, the company, if it has received money through a via media route. So let us say there is an entity A. That entity A gives to an entity B money with the instructions or under the knowledge that this money has to be given to your client. So it has not come directly from A, but it has come through a round tripping or a camouflage or whatever you might say. Then that has to be reported. And similarly, the other way around. If your client has given to some entity with instructions or the understanding that that money has to be given to another entity, then that has to be disclosed in this. Right? Important aspect. I don't know how many of you have subscribed to my VShare or get the WhatsApp broadcast from my side. 1, 2, 3. Chalo, koi baat nahi. There is now a mandatory reporting requirement for this in your main audit report, not CARO. Rule 11E and 11F. 11F relates to dividend, but Rule 11E relates to this. So please ensure, even if it is not applicable, this is a mandatory reporting requirement in your main audit report for this particular case. Don't miss out on that. Non-compliance ho jayega. Right? Coming to P&L, what are the changes? Schedule 3 mein. So total revenue changed to total income. And on the operating income, there is a line added for typically for the Section 8 companies. Because a lot of companies are now, the charitable and NGOs are being formed in the corporate form, that is the Section 8. So we had the revenue from products and services. There was nothing for the grants and charitable donations and all that is received by such companies. So वो एक line item add कर दिया है. Undisclosed income का disclosure करना है. So we don't have to become assessing officers. Again, just like we had a Benami, a very similar thing to that, that where the client has voluntarily surrendered or disclosed in income. Only in such cases, this disclosure has to be made. कि भाई books of account में recognize किया है, कहाँ किया है, कैसे किया है, and all those stuff. So arbitrary additions, ad hoc additions, disallowances, all those things typically would not form part of this because they are something which are relating to your books of account and the amounts which are voluntarily surrendered by your client or voluntarily disclosed by your client. Right? CSR, some additional reporting requirements are there. So we have a guidance note on CSR of the ICI where certain disclosures were required. So they have also got incorporated in this disclosure and some additional disclosures are there for those companies which are into, for whom CSR section 135 is mandatory. In fact, there are a couple of disclosures, additional disclosures in CARO also on the CSR. Cryptocurrency, virtual currency, इसके related disclosures है. So with respect to the profit loss, अगर broker या जिसके through deal कर रहे हैं उसको advance दिया है तो क्या balance है, as at the year end कितना currency hold कर रहे हैं. So these are all the disclosures which are there. You know, इस बार budget में जब आया था tax on the cryptocurrency तब सब लोग oh cryptocurrency, but actually देखे तो एक साल पहले schedule 3 में आ गया था, हमने पढ़ा नहीं. So these are the additional disclosures with respect to the cryptocurrency and the virtual currency that are there. So that's all for schedule 3. I think it would be easy for everybody to implement. Too easy. So coming to CARO. Now CARO, what we will do, we'll change gears now because like I said, a lot of provisions are overlapping. We have discussed them in detail in schedule 3. So that I will not discuss, and some of the additional provisions only which are required under CARO, that is where I will spend some time. So this we have already discussed. On the exemption, what happened? CARO 2020, they announced that. Then after that, जैसे Schedule 3 amendment किया, वैसे ही the MCA amended the definition of SMC, the small and medium company. So CARO में फिर change. So CARO, if you see, CARO typically does not apply to the bank, insurance, one-person company and SMCs. And for the private companies, there are 4 conditions. अगर वो trigger होते हैं, चारों चार apply होते हैं, then there is an exemption from the CARO provision. Now what has happened? Because of the change in the SMC definition, SMC का thresholds काफी बढ़ा दिए. Then there is a overlap now which is happening with a private company exemption criteria. So now if you refer to the guidance note, जो CARO का मैंने इसलिए बोला था, you refer to the latest CARO guidance note, जो 22 में release हुआ. Now what has happened? The guidance note we have clarified that अगर SMC, the company is SMC, then there is an exemption. You need not then go into the private company's 4 thresholds to again re-examine whether it is applicable or not. Because there would be now a conflicting situation कि private companies की 4 categories में जाएंगे तो applicable हो जाएगा, but at the same time it would be SMC तो exemption में आएगा. So what the guidance note says, अगर SMC में exemption है तो exemption है, then you need not go into the private company, right? So this is something because it would give a lot of relief to many of our professionals also, that CARO क्योंकि thresholds काफी बढ़ा दिए as far as SMC is concerned. So coming to the changes, fixed assets replaced by property, plant and equipment in CARO also. अभी तक fixed assets register we were mentioning that the company is maintaining. ऐसा कोई है जो इसने लिखा है नहीं maintain करता है? और कितना दिखा पाएंगे FAR? एक जन ने लिखा है. The reconciliation कितने साल से? Needs to be updated. You're taking a lot of risk. Let me be very, very blunt. God forbid again. समझिए वहाँ पे fire हुआ, flood आया, कुछ भी आया, and the client goes and tells to the insurance company, I don't have FAR. Everybody will come gunning after you. हाँ? दे देना जवाब DC में. So I would suggest that this is an area we again, as far as fixed assets register is concerned, we need to improve upon. Again, Pinky Ben was mentioning about professional opportunity. I'd say this is actually a professional opportunity where you say, typically you cannot say because you are the auditor, there would be a conflict of interest, but there are so many friends of ours over here. You can tell the client, introduce some friend of ours and say that he'll get it done for you. एक बार खर्चा आएगा, but otherwise this as a deviation, as an adverse remark will move away permanently because one time exercise है, उसके बाद तो incrementally करना है. So my request, friends, start interacting with your clients and ensure that there is actually a FAR which is there, which is made available to you and updated on an annual basis. So just like we have FAR, now the requirement has come of a similar thing for intangible assets, which under CARO we have to report whether the company is maintaining proper records showing full particulars of intangible assets. So softwares है, trademark, licenses, brand, जो भी है, which you have come, which has been showing under intangibles, उसके लिए proper records are maintained or not. क्या-क्या records में क्या-क्या columns and होने चाहिए, guidance note has given that. But this is something extra which is now required under CARO for the auditors to report. Yeah. So right of use asset is typically a leased asset, जो Ind AS में आता है. No, I agree. So right of use asset. So one is physical verification. Let us say there is an immovable property which the company has taken on lease. So that is the right of use asset. So what is a right of use asset? No, right of use asset is where you have taken on an operating lease. So operating lease, you would have a right of use asset. You will not have the asset. So the land or building per se would not be part of your fixed assets. You would not have as a line item of land or a line item of building. What you would have is a right of use asset. So a right of use asset can also be a vehicle. As per Ind AS, it can also be a vehicle. See, many companies, for the managing director, senior people, they don't buy vehicles. They have a contract with a vehicle provider, but the registration number, the vehicle is fixed. कि रोज यही गाड़ी जानी चाहिए. So if you look under Ind AS, that is also a right of use asset. Correct. So based on the capitalization that is happening under the PP, whatever assets are there under right of use, you have to do a physical verification of them. Right. So the next is with respect to properties being held in the name of the company or not. Schedule 3, तो blue में है. मतलब we have discussed that at length. I am skipping over here. Revaluation, whether done by the registered valuer as per valuation rule, we've already discussed. Benami, we've already discussed. So you can see कि कितना कारों में अपने responsibility थी, which has now been pushed into Schedule 3. Inventory verification. Just one change, but you can see its impact. Material word हटा दिया. Material discrepancies in case of physical verification of inventory, whether any material discrepancies were noticed, and if so, whether they have been properly dealt with in the books of account or not. Instead of material, now they have put a threshold of 10%. 10% for each class of inventory. So raw material is a class, packing material is a class, FG is a class, WIP is a class, whatever. Plus minus 10% किसी में भी है. Then you have to, in the CARO, say whether it has been properly dealt with in the books of account or not. So the next point is again borrowings on the security of current assets. The advantage over here is there is a threshold of 5 crores which has been prescribed. Sanction amount. Sanction amount 5 crore से ज्यादा है तो यहाँ पे आएगा. बाकी Schedule 3 में तो सब आएंगे. Right? The inventory stock statement and all that we mentioned, that one. Reporting on the loans, investment guarantees, securities, advances in the nature of loan. On the left, if you see, abhi tak we were reporting only on related parties. Right? Parties covered under the register maintained under 189 of the Companies Act, wo hata diya hai. That means all loans, investments, guarantees, securities, and advances in the nature of loan, they are required to be reported under CARO. There are 6 clauses to this. I will not go into greater detail into that, but reporting requirement. And for NBFCs, because see, now सारे आ गए तो NBFC के banks को तो apply होता नहीं है CARO. NBFCs को होता है. NBFCs को apply होता है. Out of the 6 clauses, 2 clauses में ही specific exemption is given. In the rest of the 4 clauses, even NBFC को apply होता है. So typically all the NPAs with respect to NBFCs would now, because repayment नहीं आता है, ये सब में तो reporting वैसा ही है ना. Even जो अभी भी जो CARO है, where we report कि भाई where the terms and conditions are prejudicial to the interest of the company or repayments are not being done in time, interest overdue है, वो सारे जो है तो NBFCs के लिए भी apply होंगे. In case there is anybody who is having NBFCs as their client. So these are similar things, schedule of repayments or जहाँ पे भी deviations and all, you can go through it and report on that. These 2 are new. So the first is what we typically would say is evergreening of loans, which means loans या advance दिए हैं. Let us say March 22 year end में they were supposed to come back, repayment हो जाना चाहिए था, but the company, your client, has either extended that or renewed that or giving a fresh loan और वो पुराना वापस ले लिया. So if any such transactions have happened, then that has to be specifically reported under CARO. I was mentioning about the corporate frauds and everything, and now you can visualize all these things where they are coming from. Right? The next is again loans and advances, where there is a default, then the percentage and all that is the additional reporting requirement that is there. Payment of statutory dues, goods and services tax has been included, and 7B को 7A से link कर दिया है. If you remember, A and B में अलग-अलग सब आते थे laws. Now they have put a link. Whatever is in 7A, you have to report for the 7B. These are the disputed and undisputed statutory payments that we normally mention. This is about reporting on the unrecorded incomes. We discussed that in Schedule 3 and similar reporting in CARO. Now coming to the liabilities, the borrowing side. If you see earlier, the reporting was borrowing. So default in borrowing that has been made from a financial institution, bank, government, or debenture holders. There was a specific category which has now been removed, which means any borrowing which is there, this reporting is required. Right? So even if it is from the directors, promoters, private, जो भी borrowings है, specific disclosures are there कि भाई इसमें आपको nature of borrowings है तो उसमें कोई financial institution है, bank है तो उसके specific details देने हैं. But as far as the reporting is concerned, now everything would get covered. There is that specific institutions have been removed now. Willful defaulter we discussed in Schedule 3. Term loans. So there we had that borrowings used for the purposes as at balance sheet date for whatever they were as per the sanctioned terms. तो यहाँ पे split है. So term loans का specific question पूछा है. Term loans were applied for the purpose for which they were obtained. That is the requirement in this particular clause. And in the next, they have funds raised on short-term basis have been utilized for long-term purposes. Again, you will have to prepare a cash flow and a fund flow statement over here. Cash flow statement कितने sign करते हैं? सब करते हैं ना? कितने लोग सही करते हैं? मतलब बोल सकते हैं कि मैं सही करता हूं. All non-cash items are eliminated. I'll tell you, I'm not doubting anybody, but I have seen a lot of cash flows, and especially in case of SMCs, because offices में भी क्या होता है वो delegate हो जाता है to the articles and all, and then वो last minute होता है, कभी तो balance sheet sign off होने के बाद cash flow sign होता है, right? So just ensure that a correct cash flow is what we, because it would now be, see this was there in the earlier CARO, it got dropped and now it has been reintroduced in CARO 2020. So that is another thing. In case you need any, I would say tool, I have put up one on a cash flow on vishaldoshi.in. It's an Excel file, you can download that, where to our experience, whatever are the adjustments that are required in a cash flow statement, typical ones, we have tried to cover all of them. You can download that, you can link it to the client's balance sheet file and all based on that, and you would come across it. And I would not say again that would be 100% perfect, but at least 90-95% whatever we have come across, we have tried to build that in the cash flow template that we have prepared. So that is on the short-term things. The next is, so the next two are with respect to subsidiaries, associates, and joint ventures. Clause E is where the company has borrowed to fund the obligation of a subsidiary, associate, or joint venture. Right? So the holding company has borrowed for funding them. In that case, this reporting of E is required, and the reporting of F is required where on the security of a subsidiary or holding a subsidiary, associate, or joint venture, the holding company has taken money. See, what can be the situation that there is a company which is a private limited company. It has a subsidiary. Now that subsidiary can be a listed company, right? So this company, private company, based on the pledge of shares of the listed company, they might have taken some borrowings. So such situations is what is required in clause F to be reported, that where the company has borrowed money based on the pledge of the securities of the subsidiary, associate, or joint venture. Reporting on monies raised, these are some minor changes. So term loans, if you can see, यहाँ से हटा दिया है and that earlier clause में उसको specifically वहाँ पे डाल दिया. Reporting on fraud seems a minor change, but it has very far-reaching ramifications. Till now, what was required was fraud on the company by its officers or employees. So there was a limited type of frauds which were to be reported under CARO. Now that has been removed, which means any fraud done by anybody on the company are required to be reported now. So I don't know how many of you would have come across, but then there are a lot of these phishing mails that come to a bank account, and there are frauds that are happening on the things. And so now all of them would be, abhi tak kya hota tha, we used to take, it does not recover, it is not done by an officer or employee of the company, hence need not be reported. But now, since that is out, everything, all frauds are required to be reported. Yes. So see what happens. During the course of audit, if you have come across anything, then that has to be reported. Now I would look at cases also where, जैसे मैंने बोला, phishing का आया है. Now when you are doing a scrutiny, let us say some money has been paid. I don't know how many of you know ये phishing वाले mails कैसे होते हैं, that let us say the company has payments to be made to a particular vendor, right? Let us say abc@xyz.com उसका vendor का email ID है. Now one fine day, the company, the client would receive a mail from ABD or maybe abc@xyp.com. Now, see, client will not go through कि भाई उसका जो भी है कि भाई email ID सही है क्या है, and उसमें लिखा होता है हमारे बैंक डिटेल्स चेंज हो गए हैं, कंपनी का नाम ये है, आपका पेमेंट जो है आप ये अकाउंट में डालिएगा. And on due date, the company, that person उसके मास्टर में चेंज, we have seen such cases, वो पेमेंट कर देता है. फिर वो वेंडर आता है कि भाई मेरा पेमेंट आया नहीं है, ड्यू डेट चला गया, एंड देन दे रियलाइज कि अरे ये तो एक मेल ऐसा आया था, चला गया. नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस इन सच अ सिचुएशन? टिपिकली if that amount that has gone out, if that is sitting as a receivable or that has been written off, then I would still say that as part of my audit process, I have come across such balances where there is a fraud that has happened. And in such situations, then I might be required to report, because it is not done by an officer or employee of the company, which is the requirement now, and I would need to report that. But see, what would happen is that since there are balances that are being carried in the financial statements on the amount receivable, कहीं पे चला गया है, उसने receivable दिखाया है, and receivable आएगा नहीं आएगा, there has been a police complaint that has been filed, there are a lot of things that are happening, then I still feel, if you ask me, my view is I would still be required to report that this is a fraud that has happened on the company.
I think he is taking a very narrow view that if I am doing.
Yeah, I agree that during the course of my audit, if I come across, then only I need to report. But correct. PRH that comes in due course. So the next is with respect to 143.12 reporting ADT 4 form, where frauds are supposed to be reported by the auditor, whether the auditor has reported those frauds or not. 11C on the whistleblower complaints. This is a new thing, not there in Schedule 3, but whistleblower complaints, whether the auditor has taken cognizance of that, if there are any complaints that have been received. This is an item which was there in CARO, has now been removed. Nidhi company, whether there is any default in payment, so the rest of the clauses remain same. This clause has been added in case of a Nidhi company. Internal audit. So this was there in earlier CARO. It had been dropped, now reintroduced, whether the company has an internal audit which is commensurate with the size and nature of the business. Now, in addition to that, there is a new reporting requirement that is there, that whether the reports of the internal auditor for the period under audit were considered by the statutory auditor or not. So it becomes mandatory for the statutory auditor to receive the report, the final report of the internal auditor, and also review them. Right? Not just document it, but also review them. Yes. So see, internal audit does not mean IFC. They are two independent things. IFC are the systems that are inbuilt in the by way of computer or by way of processes or guidance or whatever it might be. So they are independent. See, because even though internal audit might not be there, IFC would still be important and relevant for a statutory auditor. So what I'm saying, as a statutory auditor, the IFC testing you as it is have to do independently, whether internal auditor does or not. No, no. Registration for NBFCs. So earlier we had to report just whether registration is required or not. Now additional reporting that whether the company has conducted NBFC activities without having the registration. Right, so that is there. Then we have the core investment companies. So these are for the large groups and all. I don't think that would be applicable to our friends over here. Reporting on cash losses, again, this was there in the earlier CARO, dropped, reintroduced, that whether during the year or in the immediately preceding financial year, there has been any cash losses. So again, the cash flow statement becomes important from this perspective also. Reporting on auditor's resignation. So this is about resignation, not about a rotation. So where the auditor has resigned, then now you as the signing auditor, you will have to now in your CARO report whether you have taken into consideration the issues, objections or concerns raised by the outgoing auditors. Therefore, it becomes important for you to communicate with the previous auditor. Under Code of Ethics, it is mandatory, but now under CARO also, this requirement has been put in. Reporting on financial position. So now here we are supposed to become astrologers. So what it requires, that base of the financial ratios, schedule 3 mein disclosure aaya, aging and expected dates of realization of financial assets and payment of financial liabilities. So now we have the trade receivables, payables, aging pura aa gaya. Other information in the financial statements, auditor's knowledge of the board of directors and management plans. Whether as an auditor, you are of the opinion that as on the date of signing your audit report, the company will be able to pay its liabilities that fall due within 12 months from the balance sheet date. So let us say I'm signing on 31st of August. Then as on 31st of August, whether I am of that opinion, okay, as on 31st March 22 till 31st March 23, these 12 months, whatever are the liabilities, the company would be able to pay them. Right? So ये सारे को मद्देनजर में रख के आपको ये opinion देना है. So that is where the aging and all, where I was, see, many times what happens when we look at the face of the balance sheet, the entity might have net current assets of, let us say, 20 lakhs or 20 crores and a net current liabilities of 18 crores. So current ratio positive. But when I go into the aging, I will find that there are trade receivables of 3 crores, which are more than 3 years. So that is why this is specifically mentioned, aging and expected date of realization and payment. So you will have to consider all these things and then give your opinion whether this would be, the company would be able to meet its liabilities or not. Right?
We are analyzing with July, they had huge losses. Company won't be able to pay their loss. Then how to ascertain it? We are not auditing 2023.
But so that is what they want, that events occurring after balance sheet date, you must take cognizance of when you are signing this. And exactly what you mentioned, sir, that they say because there are losses in the next 4 months, 5 months, and now, so you have to in your report say that because of the losses that they have made in the 4-5 months, we are of the opinion that the company may not be able to meet its liabilities. And see, losses and all, there might be one-off major loss and all, but if it is a recurring loss, suddenly all these losses happen. Like you are saying, March tak sab sahi tha, April se hi laga. You know, these might be theoretically, but actually practically we have to see, because then the downfall has to be on a consistent basis. So additional couple of additional reporting on the CSR, which I had mentioned with respect to the ongoing projects and the projects which are amount unspent and all. So we have certain things in Schedule 3. Over and above that, these are the reporting requirement on the CSR in CARO. On the consolidated financial statements, anybody over here, CFS wala? Fine. So CFS, you don't need a full CARO. You don't need a line by line consolidation of CARO of the group. There is just one clause which is there, clause 21 for the CFS, where it requires that, so on a standalone, you will give 20 clauses. On the CFS, you just need to mention that whether there are any entities in the group and the clause numbers where any adverse remark or qualification have been made in those entities or the units within the group. That is the only reporting which is there. There is no line by line consolidation of CARO that is required. Yeah. So CFS, if CARO is not applicable, it would not be applicable. See, if on a standalone basis, CARO applicability goes from the standalone. If standalone is there, then it will come to the consolidated. So if on a standalone basis, if CARO is not applicable, then nothing will come in the CFS. So you can mention that you have considered that in 5 subsidiaries, CARO is not applicable. And as far as clause 21 is concerned, you cannot report on that, whether there are any deviations pointed out by the auditor. Or under SA 600, you can issue specific instructions to the group auditors, which you should, that under CARO, whether there are any things, adverse remark or qualification which the subsidiary auditors want to make. See, ultimately, you do have SA 600 for you. Right? So when you are consolidating, you can mention that. Right? So this is with respect to the last clause on the CARO. Just a couple of things for those who are interested in getting knowledge updates and all. This is the number. The difficulty is I do a broadcast. So if I have saved your number and you have saved my number, then only that exchange would happen. So the number is 8511831981. Recently, I think it was just 2-3 days back, that I have prepared a compilation from some published accounts on the CARO, all the 21 clauses, which is there on my website, vishaldoshi.in. So if you are interested, you can go there and you can download. This presentation is also available. In addition, many other presentations are available. And there are a lot of Excel tools, templates, formats, checklists that are there, which are usable, right? You just need to download them and apply them, use them. So there are a lot of things which we use in our office. We have put up on the website, which you can use. And in case you are interested, just drop a hi on this number so that my back office can add you into my broadcast list. So, and in case you need to contact me, then not on that number, because that number is with my back office. My number is on this slide, 98240-59901. And the website is also given, vishaldoshi.in. So in case you have any more questions, I would be more than happy to answer them. But thank you for a very, very patient listening. And in fact, today you had 2 heavy sessions back to back. So double thanks to you for sitting throughout. And in case you have any questions, I would be happy to respond to them. Thank you.
Clause requires if there are qualifications of these subsidiaries and group entities. Say, I'm just giving an example that the subsidiary has not maintained fixed assets register. That is what the. Then you will mention that subsidiary and you will get, which will help.
Vishal bhai, it's almost 2 o'clock and we started quarter to 9, I think, early morning. But we can witness the importance, sir. Rather, yes, because post-COVID, many of us are very comfortable with the virtual sessions rather than the physical. But then I can see the value added whatever you have provided in today's sessions. Lot of insights. I would say rather than answering the issues were coming up, and the way the Vishal bhai, he was coming up with the issues, right? To how to handle, how to tackle during the audit. It was a really appreciable, Vishal bhai, and thank you very much for giving your valuable time. So now, and sir, truly speaking, one of our member, he came to me and he said, I would like to propose the vote of thanks. But then I said, as a protocol, our co-convener only proposed the vote of thanks, but definitely you can add on into it whatever you have, whatever you want to say. So now it's a time to propose a hearty vote of thanks. I would like to invite our co-convener, CA Vijata Jaiswal, madam. Please, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, so there can be 2 vote of thanks.
Yes. Double. Thank you, convener sir. So, इंग्लिश में बोलूं आपका जैसा तो सोए हुए को झकझोर के जगा दिया ऐसा. It's a truly eye-opening session we had today, and Vishal bhai has gone through this massive subject with a fine-tooth comb, you can say, and pointed out the smallest of details which could have had a huge impact. So we thank him for sparing his valuable time and coming specially for today's session. We know that he arrived by flight and he's got a flight back, and he's enriched our knowledge. So just to quote John F. Kennedy, we must find time to thank the people who make a difference in our lives. So today we thank our CCM, CA Vishal Doshi, for making a difference in our auditing lives. So please give a round of applause. And double wali innings continue करने के लिए I would invite our member, CA Ashok Bhavna ji, please.
I would first thank the lady who has given me the opportunity. एक बहुत ही डिफिकल्ट होता है सर कि एक दोषी को कोई थैंक्स बोले, और ऐसा दोषी जो विशाल हो और जिसने अपने ईमेल आईडी में भी vishaldoshi.in, जितने दोष है सब मेरे में, वेरी लाइटर साइड, Sir, you are very learned. You are a role model for us. You came all the way from Baroda to Mumbai. I would say, not just to enlighten us. I can very well say that to teach us. There is a difference between a common speaker and a central council member. We have seen today, his thoughts were coming from the heart, and all the practical experiences you have poured in us from the JB Nagar Study Circle and from bottom of my heart. This is particularly whether it was we have learned earlier schedule 6 and now schedule 3. एक दोष ये भी है sir. But still, it's not a dosh. You are not doshi. You are really a teacher for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, members, for joining us in a large number and for your patient hearing. Thank you. And we are concluding the session, sir. Thanks.